Ebird Online, and today we're going to talk about the walking, talking trigger warning that is Emily. Yes, that's right, it's 90 Day Fiance, and it's a Season 9 Emily roast. So I've been trying to think of a compelling, ethical or practical reason why decent people wouldn't want my views on Emily and Kobe. And try as I might, I really can't think of one, so here goes. I present to you the roast of Emily. And so there are more than just a few reasons that I wanted to talk about Emily this week. But the main one is that I think Emily and her family are doing Kobe wrong, real wrong. Emily has both a face and a personality that screams, punch me. And on that we can all agree. Every time I see her walk across my screen, my heart really does sink a little. But we've all been watching Emily for quite a few episodes now, so I'm used to it, it's par for the course. But guys, this week she went one step too far. Kobe presented her with a brand new diamond engagement ring, and right after he did it, she showed him in front of her whole family the ring that she bought for herself, just in case his ring wasn't up to scratch. What? Who does this? Guys, Emily does this. Well, Emily, you can behave badly, but don't expect me to ignore it. But just before I begin unpicking all of Emily's bad behaviour this season, I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone that subscribed to my channel, and an even bigger thank you to all of those who have written comments. I really do enjoy reading through them, and as I've said before, you guys really do crack me up, so please keep them coming. But in the meantime, if you've yet to subscribe, or if you're new here, consider subscribing today. All you need to do is press that big red button marked subscribe and make Ebird a very happy Ebird. And also, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to smash the like button. Guys, it really does improve my analytics. Thanks guys. And so without further ado, I give you Emily and Kobe. So guys, after watching Emily for about 11 episodes now, I've come to this conclusion. She's a villain, she's a victim, and a vitriolic vixen all rolled into one. She's a petulant child who always wants everything her own way. And so some of the comments under my previous videos have blamed Emily's bad behaviour and selfish ways on her parents. And usually, I absolutely hate it when somebody, I don't know, blames somebody's behaviour on a third party. You are responsible for your own behaviour. But after witnessing everything that's happened the last few months, I've drawn the not unreasonable conclusion that it's true. Her parents rank among the worst enablers that 90 Day Fiance's ever known. They've got nothing on Debbie, Colt's mum, Nicole's mum from Nicole and Azan, or even Tiffany's mum. And I'll tell you why. These two are worse because they recognise that Emily has toxic behaviour, but at the same time, they back her up at every turn. And Emily's mum even assisted Emily in misrepresenting the argument that Emily and Kobe had when Kobe asked her to shut the F up. As we all know, he should never have said that in front of her mum. But the way they portrayed it to Emily's dad was unbelievable. It was made out to be all Kobe's fault. And there was no mention that Emily was needlessly haranguing him throughout the task he was undertaking. And so I think analysing everything that we know about Emily now, I've drawn but one conclusion. Emily is unremittingly selfish. Whether it's Kobe, her parents, or even baby Kobe, Emily does everything so it's easiest for her. And so one really good example of this are the sleeping arrangements. I was shocked to find out this week that right from the very first night until now, and bear in mind guys, this is now 2 months, Kobe has slept on his own in the spare room whilst Emily has slept with baby Kobe in the bed. Her excuses are as thus. Firstly, Kobe won't settle and rest when Kobe's in the bed because he's not used to it. Also, having Kobe in the bed puts Kobe out of his routine. Emily, you've had 60 days now to get him into a routine which includes his father. You haven't done so. And the third thing is, the bed is too small for all three of them. That could well be true, but she hasn't even considered letting Kobe have his own bed or cot. And so we saw the couple this week and they were going bed shopping. And even though Emily knows that getting a new bed, a bigger bed, so all three can sleep together, is extremely important to Kobe for him to bond with his son, and also really it should be important for their relationship as well, she's still extremely reluctant. And she told production, even though we don't have much money right now, if it really makes Kobe happy, I guess we'll go and have a look at the beds. And as they walk around the bed shop, she said, I don't want to spend too much money. And then Kobe told production, she started to consider my feelings and I'm really happy that we're getting a bigger bed. Oh Kobe, if you only knew how goddamn reluctant she is. And then suddenly Emily lay down on a bed and it started vibrating. And she was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I really want this. We can have so much fun with this bed. Let's get this one. All of a sudden now, she's happy because she thinks she'll have an enhanced sex life. Nothing to do with Kobe being with his son or their whole family being together in one room. Guys, don't be ridiculous. Emily's thinking, as she always does, about her nether regions. Oh guys, yet again it's come to our attention that Emily has a serious problem controlling her lusty inclinations. And as the world looked on aghast, well, as I looked on aghast, Emily and Kobe in the bed shop simulated sex and were dry humping. Oh Lord, I had to look at the TV screen through my fingers. And although Emily had earlier said we can't really afford a bed, she decided in the end to plump for a more expensive model, a vibrating bed. Suddenly when Emily has what Emily wants, cost goes out the window. And just an aside, I'm not saying that this is true, but I have a little theory, and that is the main reason that Emily wants Kobe in her bed of an evening is so that she never ever has to wake up in the middle of the night, go to another room and feed him because he's crying. I think she just wants to be able to roll over, flop one out and feed him, all whilst achieving the least movement possible. That's why I think she wants baby Kobe in her bed. And so the second recent example of Emily's unbelievable selfishness was when she asked her parents to help fund her wedding to Kobe. Now Kobe's already said, I would like quite a small wedding so that we can have as much money as we can to actually set up our life together. I'd like to move out and for us to stand on our own 2 feet. But as we all know, because of the K1 visa, Kobe can't work for at least 90 days until they get married. But even then, he has to wait another, I think, 2 or 3 months to get the green card through. So he cannot work anywhere until then. And so Emily said, no, I want a big wedding. I want the dress, I want the ring, I want everything. And so she decides to go and ask her parents to fund the wedding. And so guys, they're all sitting down in the living room. And Emily said to her dad, everything's fine, everything's sorted within our relationship. The only thing we need help with is to plan this wedding and to pay for the wedding. And so obviously her parents were, I don't know, a little reluctant, and they were very worried about this whole union anyway. And her mum was of the opinion that she's only known Kobe just over a month, and she's not really sure they're right for each other. Oh mum, I'm sure they're not. And then her dad said, I am just really worried about the time frame. And mum said, you know, you do have a choice. You don't have to get married now. If I were you, mum, I'd let ICE know that, and I would let the American government know that. Because once you're on a K1 visa, you have but 90 days. And if this couple are not married by that point, Kobe will have to return to Cameroon, thus missing even more of his young son's life. And I think I also remember somebody saying a few seasons ago that if the person has to go back to their country, they can't apply for a K1 again, I think either for a year or for 18 months. Quite literally, Kobe will be smoking cigarettes behind the bus shelters before his dad sees him again if he goes home now. And then one final thing, as we all know, Kobe had to wait 18 months because of COVID before he could get to America anyway. Mum, Dad, everybody knew that there was only 90 days to get married. So at this point in time, there's no real reason to say, let's wait, let's see how things go. It's a little too late for that plan. That's a conversation you have before applying for and paying for the K1 visa. And her parents said, you don't seem to be getting on that well. And of course Emily gave a very heavy eye roll and said, Mum, Dad, I have it handled. All I need is the money. And then her dad said very reluctantly, fine, I'll help with it. And Emily didn't even look that grateful. But guys, the reason this shocks me is because if her parents aren't that into it, they should just say, we're not going to pay for the wedding, we'll give you a few hundred to get a courthouse wedding. And then if everything goes okay, after a couple of years, we'll have a big wedding at that point. But no. They acquiesced to their little diva daughter's demands immediately. And her dad said to production, Kobe needs to prove to me that he can provide for his family, because Emily, well, she doesn't have a clue. She has a clue on one thing, Dad, that you're a soft touch, and she got that 100% right. Back in the day when the Ebird used to beg her dad for money, I'd at least offer to pay it back, and I'd also look very grateful and thankful when he gave me money. She just looked pissed off that it took her so long to actually get them to say fine, which all in all was about 10 minutes. And then Mum decides to have her say. She said, Emily, you don't know anything about life. You don't know how to budget, you don't know how to pay rent, you don't know how to pay bills or utilities, or food. You don't know how to live. And Emily decided to swat away the little fly that is her mum, and she said, well, I'm sure I'll figure it out. Really, Emily? What else have you managed to figure out thus far? I'll wait. And so the next example of Emily's selfishness is her lack of, her lack of help and support for her fiance. So as we know, Kobe came over here with just $4,000, and Kobe has no idea how little money this is in American terms. And Emily hasn't decided yet to clue him in. Also, thus far, there's been no real talk about what it is Kobe's going to do for a living in America. And so I believe that she and Kobe had a chat. And we didn't see this, but this is the only logical explanation for what happens next. I think she and Kobe had a chat about Kobe maybe working for her dad, who it turns out is an architect. And so unsurprisingly, Kobe has it in his head that this is a realistic proposition. And so a couple of weeks ago, Emily's dad decided to pull Kobe aside for a chat about money. And he asked him how much money he had. And of course, when he said $4,000, Kobe's dad said, that will only last you 2 months in America. Oh really, Dad? 1 month if Emily's your fiancée. In fact, what am I talking about? 1 trip to the jewellers if Emily's your fiancée. And he said, Kobe, what are you planning to do for work? And Kobe said, well, Emily told me about your business, and I thought maybe I could work for you and you can train me to do what you do. And guys, if looks could kill, Emily's dad looked at Kobe as if he'd just climbed onto his dinner table and done a curly shit in the middle of it. He said it takes years to do what I do. Have you been to college? Have you been to university? Obviously, no and no. Well, then there's no possible chance that you could work in my company with me or do what I do. What you need to do is go out and get yourself a job. Now guys, I'm prepared to concede that in some ways Emily's dad was, disrespected or a little bit peeved that Kobe had suggested that he can roll in and take over the family firm, and also that he would be capable of learning what Emily's dad knows. I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but let's put it all into perspective. Kobe probably doesn't even understand what exactly it is that Emily's dad does. Also, if he does have his own architecture firm, then I'm sure there's a low-level role that potentially Kobe could do with some training. And Kobe did say, I'm prepared to go to college, I'm prepared to study, I'm prepared to work really hard. And so I don't see any reason to look at him as if he was crap on the bottom of his shoe. But also, Emily, you've hung the man out to dry. You live in America. You know what kind of jobs Kobe could potentially do. You should have been thinking about what he wants to do along with Kobe, realistic ideas, before he even came. If you really had your game about you, you would have told him, let's enroll you into some courses. I don't know, maybe carpentry or a trade or something like that, so that you can begin learning before you even have your work permit, which realistically could be 6, 7, 8 months away. But did Emily think of any of that? No. Why? Because she doesn't really care. She knows they'll have money from her parents, and she doesn't care how potentially emasculating it would be for Kobe. Emily was too busy thinking about their sexual chemistry and buying underwear to think about what's my fiancé going to do when he gets here. I'm not blaming this entire thing on Emily. Kobe should have had some idea himself what he wanted to do, but Emily certainly should have been part of the conversation, and she wasn't. And Dad, considering your primary concern is, can Kobe look after my family, I would have thought that you'd have some thoughts on what Kobe would do, instead of just saying to him, well, you need to start thinking about it. How about he's about to be your son-in-law? Maybe you can help him map out a plan. Just a thought. And then to pile on the pressure, her dad said to Kobe, well, you need to get a job soon. Are you going to be out of here within the 90 days? I don't know, but let's hope so. What? There's no chance, because he can't work. And as Emily's just pointed out to us, she's now working part-time. It's well within Emily's capabilities to work full-time to get extra money and to have Kobe look after the child whilst he's at home. But Emily's too precious a princess to get a full-time job. And then let's talk about the wedding. Emily wants to have a big fairy tale wedding with a princess wedding dress, and she goes out shopping with her mum, her grandma and her sister. And guys, as she was trying on the dresses, I could see one thing in Emily's eyes. Emily wants a wedding and not a marriage. She hasn't thought about where they'll live, how they'll live, what money they'll have to furnish an apartment. All of that to Emily is just background noise. The moment her dad said he'd pay for the wedding and gave her some money, she gathered the girls together and went out wedding dress shopping, and she tried on different dresses. And I think the one that she plumped for was $1,000, which isn't particularly expensive, but in their situation and looking at the dress, I'm pretty certain she could have got that dress for like $500 somewhere. Try eBay. or Alibaba. I think there are some quite good deals on Alibaba. But what came next absolutely shocked me. Not only was she spending money on the wedding dress, Emily had bought her own engagement ring, and she said, I've been hinting to Kobe. Hinting? You've been saying, buy me a ring now, you better buy me a ring. Hinting? You've been freaking threatening. The only thing missing from your hints was an Uzi 9mm. And she got the ring out, and I gotta say, and it was most definitely a bling ring. It looked about, I don't know, £2,000 to £3,000 worth of ring to me. But your dad has just given you this money, and the first thing you do is not to buy a bed so that your family can sleep together, is not to buy anything for your son. Item number 1 on your shopping list was an engagement ring for you. You both need wedding rings for this wedding. She didn't even try to get a couple of wedding bands, just her engagement ring. Unbelievably selfish. Even her family couldn't believe it. Her sister said, what are you going to do with the ring if Kobe does end up buying you a ring? And she said, oh, the jeweller said I can return it. Of course he fucking does. What an idiot that girl is. You can return it and get about half the face value back for it. Jewellers do not take things back at the price they sold it at. Absolute facts. There's absolutely no doubt in the Ebird's mind that the no-hassle refund comes with lots of hassle. In fact, incredible hassle, and refund means you'll never see your money again. That's what that means, Emily, you dimwit. And then there's a question of Emily's selfishness over the wedding and the wedding finances. She tells us she wants a fairy tale wedding, and she's not prepared to cut any corners. Unsurprisingly, Kobe said, let's have a small wedding, and let's use the money that your dad has given us to rent a property and to start living independently. And as usual, she's taken a unilateral approach to the decisions regarding this, i.e. just saying no to everything that Kobe suggests. So basically her dad's given them a few £1,000s. And she's deciding how to spend every single penny of it. And I can't help but think at some point her dad's going to say to Kobe, well, I gave you guys the money for the wedding, with no appreciation for the fact that Kobe doesn't want any of this. In essence, Dad, you've given Emily the money for the wedding, and Kobe has no say whatsoever. And Emily's final act of selfishness for this video is the issue of the not 1, not 2, but 3 engagement rings. Now, it's not just the fact that she's already got a ring and she wants to buy herself another ring. It's the fact that she bought herself another ring and she's still threatening Kobe to buy her yet another ring. This, in essence, is engagement ring number 3. You guys, Emily literally lives in a weird-ass imaginary world, and I think I'm going to pray for her. And so, as we know, Emily went out and bought herself a very nice engagement ring. And she showed her family. But little did she know, Kobe had already organised to take her sister and her dad out, and they all went out ring shopping. And again, guys, this actually really pissed me off by Emily's dad. He said, I'm only going to keep Kobe's spending in check. Dad, he's only got £4,000, so there's an absolute limit to what he's going to spend. And her dad went all snide to production and said, for Kobe to buy a ring for Emily is just stupid. They have no money. But he knows well and good that Emily's threatening him, Emily's putting on the pressure, and he lives in her house with her family. And the K1 visa is at her behest. She really has got his bollocks in her hands, and her dad knows that. Honestly, guys, every day I like him less and less. And so they go into the shop and look at different rings, and the shop assistant shows Kobe some £7,000 rings. And in the end he plumped for a ring which was £1,500. But the guy in the shop knocked it down to £1,000. And I thought it actually looked quite nice. It was a diamond ring. And Emily's sister confirmed that Emily would like it. And Kobe seemed very happy. And so Emily and Kobe went out that evening for a meal. And Kobe was going to present her with the brand new engagement ring. And so they sat down in the restaurant and they ordered some food and some drinks. And then the waitress came over and said, here's a couple of complimentary glasses of champagne. And straight away Emily started flicking her hair and basking and saying, see Kobe, see what you get when you come out with me. What's that, Emily? Pray tell. The worst company in Kansas. And she went to take a swig of her champagne and realised there was something in the bottom, and Kobe had popped the engagement ring in there. Oh, how cute. And Emily looked faux shocked and she fished it out and put it on. It fit perfectly and she admired it from afar. And she said, oh my God, thank you so much. I didn't know if you were going to get me one. Yes, you did, Emily. Oh, yes, you did. But guys, a little bit later on when they got home, Emily sat down in front of her family and said, oh my God, look, Kobe got me a ring. And she showed the ring around and everyone cooed and said, yes, it's lovely. Emily, they've all already seen it. But then inexplicably she said, I feel really bad about getting my own ring, and I guess I have to come clean about it to Kobe. And right then and there, in front of everybody else, she told Kobe that she had another ring. Kobe refused to look at it, and I think they passed it to Emily's mum and she had a look at it. And the last shot of the scene was Emily putting her little hand up and comparing the two rings together. Who does that? Why are you comparing the rings, Emily? She's so ungrateful, it's disgusting. And even her own sister said, I can't believe she just did that. There's tons of pressure on Kobe at the moment. I feel really sorry for the guy. What she just did to him is emasculating. And she's not wrong, it is. And at one point her dad suggested that she was high maintenance, and she said, I'm not high maintenance. I want what I want, and I don't want anything less than that. Really, Emily? Do you want to hear what I want? I want you, just like Kobe, to shut the F up. And so guys, that's everything for this review. What do you think? Is Emily unutterably selfish? I think that she is. But I'd like you to put in comments down below, what do you think was Emily's most selfish moment to date this series? To me, the buying of the ring just put the icing on the cake. It was something she didn't need to do, and I'm virtually certain she'll lose money on it. But even if she doesn't, she's managed to emasculate and upset Kobe for no good reason. So yeah, please put your comments down below and I will get on with my next video. Right, so guys, like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you soon. You've been listening to Ebird Online and I bid you good day.